welcome to episode 10 of Deep Dish Live. I'm the founder and host of this series that explores the business of restaurants for restaurateurs, restaurant buyers and sellers, and the restaurant curious. Today we're on episode 10, which is how to sell my restaurant fast. Fast is in uppercase and italicized. Fast. I'm going to look at that from both the buyer and seller's perspective, but first I'd like to introduce my support team with me today. I've got Ed Troxel behind the counter. He's a live media consultant for businesses. Hi, Ed.
Hey everyone.
And at home, and her home office is Holly Hansen from Holly Hansen Public Relations. She's managing the feed while I'm out here live streaming with Ed. Hi, Holly. And let's see, a little bit about me. I'm a restaurant broker and consultant. I'm licensed to work all over the state of California, and I do. I'm super passionate about the restaurant industry because I came to it as a young chef. I started cooking in the kitchens of Tassajara Zen Mountain Center, moved to San Francisco, cooked at Greens, moved to Sonoma County, was the executive chef for Amy's Kitchen, and then I went on to own and operate my own restaurant. Went back to school, got an MBA, and then I taught at the Culinary Institute of America out of Greystone. If you want to know more about me and the services I offer, please be sure to check out my website or my Facebook page, and you can reach out to me directly through those services. So if you're familiar with this series, you know that we give a $100 gift card away from the host restaurant. Today we'll be giving a $100 gift card away from the Downtown Bakery and Creamery, which will be moving over there soon. But today I'll be announcing the winner of Flower Child Bakery out of Novato in Marin County, California. At the end of the series, it's a $100 gift card. It's a way that we like to highlight our host restaurants and also support them. So why don't I launch into how to sell my restaurant fast? So there are two factors to a quick restaurant sale. One of them is getting into escrow, getting a qualified, advertising to that qualified buyer, getting out to that qualified buyer. So any business broker is going to have subscriptions to expensive business brokerage websites. However, what I found is the number one way to get a buyer quickly is to not hold that sale confidential. And what I mean by that is almost every restaurant, when it's for sale, is a confidential sale, which can offer a lot of barriers to buyers when they're looking. They have to sign a non-disclosure agreement for each business that they're interested in. Typically, the region that the business operates might not be advertised. Like Healdsburg might not be the advertised city, so people can't guess what's for sale. And the reason for this is there's several reasons for this. The operator doesn't want it to hurt their business, the potential sale, and they also don't want to scare off their employees. Two very valid things. However, under certain conditions, a restaurant is very well suited for a very public sale. And today at the Downtown Bakery and Creamery, it's very unique. This is we're the first host restaurant that I have listed for sale, and it's publicly listed. So last week, those of you who are local might have seen a big article in the business section of the Press Democrat, our local paper in Sonoma County, where they did a highlight on Kathleen Stewart, who's the owner and founder of the Downtown Bakery, about her background. She came from Chez Panisse. She opened the Downtown Bakery on the Healdsburg Square 35 years ago. So there was a big article. So one, if the restaurant or the restaurateur warrants it, a big article like that, a public article like that, can bring a huge influx of buyers. And one of the benefits of that is there can be a bidding war for the business, which almost never happens in business brokerage because it's not as competitive because it's a confidential sale. So the other reason that Downtown Bakery and Creamery was well suited for coming public about the sale is the reason why it's for sale. Kathleen is retiring. She's not selling because she's burnt out or because the bakery isn't profitable. She's retiring. Another reason that this bakery is well suited for that, it's located on the Healdsburg Square. So let me take a minute and talk about the Healdsburg Square. I was just talking to Ed about The Healdsburg Square is sort of the retail epicenter in the San Francisco North Bay. It's a very sought out retail location because the square, as you can see, is gorgeous. It has a gazebo, it has a lot of landscaping that offers shade and sun. It has parking all the way around the square, and all the retail that's available sits on all four sides of the square and faces the square. Anybody that's in landscape, urban design know why Healdsburg is so popular. We also have some of the most beloved wineries. There's several appellations that all sort of come together, wine appellations that come together at Healdsburg. So there's a lot of tasting rooms here. We have a 3 Michelin rated restaurant, Single Thread, just up the street. Valette, that I streamed from in episode 3, is right around the corner. It's the place to be. Another reason that Downtown Bakery was well suited for a very public offering is the buyer for somebody like Downtown Bakery might not be your average restaurant bakery buyer. It might not be somebody that jumps on those websites or even knows about those business brokerage websites. So if they see out in the community that the bakery is for sale, they might have just harbored this idea like, I would love to own and operate that bakery, so that we would be able to tap a market that normally wouldn't be tapped. Don't get me wrong, the advertising sites that I use for my confidential listings are very robust, and you can reach out to me at another time and I can talk to you about what that looks like. So, 2 ways to move a restaurant or food-related business through the sales process quickly. One, find that qualified buyer quickly, is what I just talked about. The other is moving through the escrow process quickly. So I'm going to give you an example, a live example that's happening right now. I'm in escrow to sell a quick service, independently operated quick service restaurant in Santa Rosa. Quick service means that you order either online, or you call on your phone, or you go in and place the order and then you take the food to go. You don't eat on site. So that business doesn't have a beer and wine license, doesn't have an ABC license, and it's a 3-year-old business. What that means is, less than 3 years ago, the current operator went through the health department, went through all the county departments to get their permitting. So the health department has already come on site and is not going to require anything special of the next operator, so they're immediately going to issue a health permit to the next operator. There's no beer and wine license to transfer. I'll talk about that more in just a minute. So because of the facility was already in compliance to current codes, and because there's no ABC license, that escrow is 45 days. You guys, in the land of business brokerage, 45 days is a dream. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to give another example, but let me say this. If a facility, if a premise, if a business has a type 47 or a 48 full liquor license, that's where you can sell spirits, that business has to go through an escrow process transferring that ABC license. And that ABC license transfer process is quite a while. The district office in our region says 60 to 90 days. I just did an ABC license in Solano County. Their district office is in Concord, and their ABC process took longer than that. So if there's a 47 or 48, you automatically know it's going to be a longer escrow process. So I want to give another example. So let's say the example that I just gave of my quick service. Let's say they did have a beer and wine license. If the buyer comes to the seller and says, we're going to buy your business, but we're going to get an original beer and wine license, that makes their offer more attractive to the seller, because that means nobody has to wait for the original license, the license that the seller has, to go through escrow. So with a beer and wine license, you can get them easily. The transfer application is very similar. The cost is very similar. So you ask, why would a buyer transfer an original license? The reason is timing. So if my buyer for that fast casual restaurant, quick service restaurant, doesn't want a interruption in service at the close of escrow wants to see, which if my buyers are buying that concept, that brand, those recipes, they shouldn't have to experience an interruption in service at the close of escrow. So they're going to want to more than likely transfer that original license so that at the close of escrow, the next day they open as the new operator ready to sell beer and wine. That said, with a qualified restaurant broker, we have ways of maybe getting an original license where the process starts in escrow and the timing's pretty close. There might be an interruption in service so that that buyer can still submit that attractive offer to the seller. I'm going to take a break, gather my breath, see if Holly has texted me any Facebook Live site. For those of you who've just joined us, I want to remind you that my name is Rin Longmaid. I'm a restaurant broker and consultant out of Sonoma County at Santa Rosa Business and Commercial. Today I'm live streaming with Ed Troxel behind the camera in the Healdsburg Square. And our host restaurant is actually the Downtown Bakery and Creamery. We'll be moving over there in just a second. Also, if you're just joining us, you'll know, well, if you've never been to our series before, we always give away a $100 gift card from our host restaurant, which today is the Downtown Bakery and Creamery. If you like and post a comment to today's post, you can do it during the live feed. Actually, you can do it anytime between now and the next time we stream the episode, which I believe it's September 22nd. We're going to be in Marin County in Fairfax at Mas Masa. So I'll announce the winner to this gift card. Today, at the end of my series, I'm going to announce the winner to the $100 gift card to Flower Child Bakery, which is where we live streamed last month, which is in downtown Novato in Marin County. I think that's everything. Did I cover everything? Okay, so let's go into my last example. My last example is an escrow that just closed. It was a cafe. They roast their own coffee beans. They don't have a beer and wine license. However, the operator had been there for many, many, many years. I want to say 25 years. So the health department had not come in and enforced codes that have changed over time. They'd be enforcing codes that are costly for the operator to execute on, so they save that for the change of ownership. So when the buyer came in and the health department did their change of ownership site review, they required two things that seem innocuous. A hand sink and a prep sink. So when that's required, the health department also requires plans to be submitted to them. And 99.9% of the time when the health department says add a sink, it automatically makes the water heater that's on site out of compliance. It means that the water heater is no longer large enough to supply hot water under given conditions to all the sinks. So generally, if something like that happens, that could extend the escrow process. But in this case, the buyer, we connected that buyer to an experienced restaurant designer, and the buyer, had an experienced contractor, and we came on site during escrow. We talked about what the health department requirements were. We figured out how much it was going to cost with the contractor and projected timelines. So the buyer was able to come in and make a really attractive offer to the seller because she really wanted that cafe, so that all of those things are going to be taken care of outside of escrow. So you may be thinking, why doesn't every buyer do that? Take care of it outside of escrow. The reason why is the buyer is assuming all the risk. Let's say they get in there after the close of escrow, the seller's taken their wad of cash, they're sitting on the beach in Hawaii, and they find out the plumbing's faulty or the electrical's faulty, or they find out whatever when they start doing the things that are necessary for them to get their health permit. And actually, let me pause for a second. So the way that it could have happened inside of escrow is the seller is still operating because they have a permitted facility with the health department. So they'd still be operating, and the buyer would be taking care of those necessary things for them to secure their permit at the change of escrow. So the seller is still paying rent, keeping all the licenses and permits current, still paying the employees, still managing the employees, still servicing all the customers, and the buyer in the background is taking care of those things. So in this instance, escrow closed. There's going to be an interruption in service while so the business closed down, because the buyer cannot operate because the health department will not give them the permit until those things are taken care of. So the buyer is going to take care of all those things. And here's something we were actually able to secure for the buyer, which is also somewhat unique in a business transfer. We were able to secure some rent abatement from the landlord, which means the landlord's not going to charge her rent for a handful of months while she takes care of those items to offset some of the costs, because she's got nothing but expenses and no revenue while she's taking care of those things. So I'm just going to go back to my original topic. And, as is the case whenever you watch one of my episodes, my story is yes and. There is always, you always want to be working with an experienced restaurant broker that knows what could be happening in the coming, once we make this decision, what are some of the ramifications or benefits of that decision? So, to make a sale go by fast, you want to make sure you, number one, I didn't even say this, price the restaurant for sale properly. If you price that restaurant for sale, and it costs too much, that will be a lengthy sale, because buyers will come and they'll go until that price finally gets down. I talk about how to price a restaurant extensively, again, when I was at Valette Restaurant. That's in episode 3, so if you're curious about that, go there. I talk about it all the time, but a lot in that episode. And then the other way to keep it, to secure a qualified buyer quickly, is to make that sale open. The seller, you have to have a frank discussion with the seller. Sometimes the restaurant might be ill-suited for a very public advertising of that sale. For instance, if they're not in a good location, or they have really super high rent or something like that, it might not be a benefit to the seller. But if you want to sell quickly and you've priced that restaurant properly, I recommend not having a confidential listing, because you'll get more buyers. The downside to the seller is everybody and their brother, especially in Healdsburg, because everybody knows everybody in Healdsburg, is going to come in and chit-chat with you about the sale of your business. And I'm sure Kathleen's gotten a lot, because she tells me she has. So I always leave a big stack of my cards at the front counter so they can say, talk to my broker. And then, once you get into contract, how to shorten that sale process has to do with strategies in escrow. If you have a full liquor license, that type 47 or 48, those licenses are no longer issued as originals, so it's going to be a long process no matter what. Might as well take care of all the health department requirements inside of the escrow, because the ABC is going to mandate it anyway. Otherwise, you can work closely with somebody like me, a qualified and experienced restaurant broker, to strategize. And the more the buyer can make the sale attractive to the seller, the more likely the seller would be to lower the price, because the shorter escrow, so I just had a restaurant transfer, a bar transfer in another county recently, and as they were approaching the close of escrow, his ABC license expired, and he had to go pay to have his license reactivated, made active again, because you can't transfer a suspended license. So it cost him some money for 1 week to have an active license, for 1 week for it to transfer out. So you want to be talking to me, a qualified restaurant broker, at every step of the way to see what benefit it is to the buyer, what benefit it is to the seller. So again, the benefit to the seller on a short sale, they're not paying rent, they're not paying their employees. By the time a seller comes to me and they're ready to sell, they're generally ready to sell. However, there are those sellers, I was one of them, they had that price. When I sold my restaurant, I knew the price I wanted to get, and I was going to work. I was a chef, so I cooked until that buyer came to me. I was not in a hurry. Here's my price. If you want it, great. If that price is too high, this isn't the restaurant for you. So, Ed, I think that's it for my topic today. Should we go across the street and join Kathleen?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to jaywalk. Again, we're in the downtown square in Healdsburg. We're now jaywalking on Center Street. might be a little dodgy. They're going to let us go. We're going to head into the Downtown Bakery and Creamery, which is listed for sale. If you're interested in owning and operating an incredible bakery, contact me after this live, please. Hi.
Hello.
Okay. We're going to cut in line. Okay, now we're inside. So Ed, why don't we give a tour real quick? Here's the front seating. As you can see, it's got a beautiful open exhibition kitchen where they do prepare the pastries and the bread. Beautiful, gorgeous skylights, nice, open and airy. We're going to slip back here and talk to Kathleen. This is us. Kathleen, we're here. Hi. Here's Ed.
Should I unmask?
You can, or I should mask. Actually, I can
Yeah,
mask
we're
too.
supposed to.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
So this is Kathleen Stewart, and Kathleen, I haven't talked about you yet. Can I talk about you before
Yes, you may.
So Kathleen Stewart has owned and operated this bakery on the Healdsburg Square for 35 years. And she has an illustrious background. She started, well, I don't think you started there, but she used to work at Chez Panisse.
That is pretty much where I
Is that
started.
where you started?
Yes.
And you were there for 15
Straight
years?
out of art school. Yeah, almost 15. On
15
and
years
off.
at
Yeah.
Chez Panisse.
Yep.
Which is an amazing pedigree to have. So Kathleen, this is a little unique in my series. I usually talk more about the business and what's available, but today I want to talk about the Downtown Bakery as available to the next operator.
Yes.
So chat it up. What do you want to say?
Well, 35 plus years ago, the original pastry chef at Chez Panisse, Lindsay Shear, and her daughter Therese, who was also a cook at Chez Panisse, they got a place up here, and I lived in Alexander Valley, working part-time still at Chez Panisse. And we started talking about opening a little store in Healdsburg, which was not the Healdsburg we know and love now. A little kind of farmy ghost town, but it felt kind of like a nice idea. And we could use the peaches off our peach trees and the figs off our fig trees. And it was one of those daydreams over dinner that became a reality. And it grew exponentially into what it is now, where we do full line of hearth-baked breads that are all made with organic flours, all different kinds of desserts, cakes, cookies, eclairs, special order things, all different kinds of breakfast pastries that are primarily based on a classic croissant dough. We make ice cream here, like really cracked eggs and true fresh fruit ice cream, all coming from the using local, using organic, using seasonal, especially, things in a bakery which 35 years ago did not exist anywhere, much less in the restaurant world. There were a few, but not very many.
So I'm going to jump in here.
Yeah.
So Kathleen is one of the early founders of this whole farm-to-table movement. And even today, like, I come from cooking at Tassajara and cooking at Greens, which also comes from those same tenets of farm-to-table. However, I can tell you a lot of your farm-to-table restaurants that I go to sell, when I look at their vendor lists, they're farm-to-table in name only. Yeah. When I look at Kathleen's vendor list, she has close, tight relationships with, the stone fruit farmers and dry trees. Exactly.
Front porch, all of the produce and fruit people. Plus, today, for instance, I bought 100 pounds of rhubarb from somebody's backyard.
So she's a pioneer in the movement.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, the ideal to me, you can interrupt me. To me, the ideal buyer is somebody who's passionate about baking and pastry, who's not afraid to work hard, because in this industry you have to work hard, who's really involved, who really is involved in community and being a leader in community. Because one thing that was really shocking to me when I opened my restaurant, I went from just being this back of the house chef to automatically being like somebody that was in the community that that people knew went to get advice from or ask questions about what was happening in the
Or
community.
get donations for their kids' school
School.
auction. Or,
I was gonna say
yeah,
that.
it's endless.
So Kathleen and her family will train. Part of what you purchase when you buy a restaurant, a bakery, a cafe is training and consulting. And this is going to take quite a bit. And Kathleen and her son and daughter are up for the challenge.
We are.
So currently
And
open,
then, of course, putting your own twist on it.
yes,
Because there's lots of room for that. Healdsburg is a booming town that with both locals and guests that are curious about all different kinds of things, whatever people would want to do would work.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
'Cause it's true.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in more information on the Downtown Bakery, you can reach out to me directly. You can come in here and any time, 6 days a week from 7 to 3,
7 to 3, we're closed Mondays.
closed Mondays, to get an amazing homemade pastry and a great espresso drink. You can dine in, you can walk across the street and enjoy it in the square. Kathleen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we're not going to end yet. We're going to walk out back out.
Okay.
So come with me, Ed, because we have a couple more things we have to do. One quick thing I want to do is introduce or announce the winner to the gift card from Flower Child Bakery. It's Debbie Grace Smith. Debbie, I will reach out to you. Do you know Debbie?
Yeah, she's
Yay.
gonna be so happy.
Oh, wonderful. You can give me her address then, and I will mail this to you. And then I'm going to post your picture on my website. All my gift card winners have their own webpage on my website because I just love this aspect of my series. And if you're interested in getting a $100 gift card from the Downtown Bakery and Creamery, our host bakery today, please like this episode and write a comment. You can do it here. You can do it when I post it to LinkedIn. You can do it on my YouTube channel, and please visit my YouTube channel. It's a relatively new channel. It's for those of you who aren't on Facebook. So if you know somebody who might enjoy this series and they don't participate in Facebook, send them over to YouTube. So without further ado, join me in a month on September 22nd, where Ed and I will be live streaming from Mas Masa in downtown Fairfax in Marin County. Until then, have a great week.